Thank you so much, Victoria. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse to go at the end of this morning's session, but just brilliant and inspiring talks. So I will just go on to start talking about some of the work that we've been doing with Urban Symbiotics, just to ensure that young people are really at the forefront of the work that we do. Can you see my screen okay? Okay, brilliant. So thank you for the introduction, Victoria. I'm urban designer, architect, and co-founder of Urban Symbiotics. And so we just going to talk about some of the processes that we use to ensure that children's views are not only taken into account, but really placed at the forefront. As many of the speakers before have spoken about, a lot of the input then becomes, and also the outcomes become so dynamic, so inspirational. And actually it's a gift to us as practitioners to work with young people. We also, I'm going to just talk about some of the procedures about how we link that to power, responsibility for decision making, but amongst the other community members, because we see young people as part of a collective of community and user focused design. And I'll just talk about a few case studies. So us at Urban Symbiotics, we're very much kind of designed, split between both a product designer who's James Stewart, who co-founded Urban Symbiotics, and myself, an architect and urban designer. And so we use almost this unique approach by looking at almost this product design perspective to really inform the built environment. So when we say that, we mean, when you develop, for example, a product, you ensure you go to all of the users, and they are extremely important in helping shape those products. In this place, it is place, it is buildings, it's all of the places that we occupy. And as we know, young people form such a huge part of this. As part of our process, we know that the tick box standard of engagement is very much focused on just before planning, and towards the end you might have some post-occupancy analysis. But particularly working with young people, it's really important that we embed as designers and architects, and that continuous engagement. It isn't always equal throughout the entire process, but it allows that adaptability and allows the feedback process to help inform both the brief, the design, and also the resulting outcome. And we believe that the design is just as important as the unique engagement, but the insight taken from that unique engagement really can help to shape great design. So we do it over 4 stages. Very much the first about identify and understand who is the community group. We talk about young people, but who are the young people? How are they, broken down into, ability, down to ethnicity, culturally, to ensure you also have a reflective demographic of young people, not just having young people on the table. And then how you can have a really inclusive participation strategy. So whether that's co-design or co-creation, but ensuring that it is meaningful and it, is balanced in terms of what can be changed. And then down to realizing, I think Matt and Fiona spoke really well about, the meanwhile use, about testing some of these ideas and championing, using the process to help champion, does this work? Does this not work? How can we bring young people to start to shape that? And then finally, it's not only about just involving young people and children in the process, but very much allowing them to feel like they are a part of the outcome, having that sense of pride, being able to really own and use the space in a really effective and sustainable way. And we ensure that we embed it into our process. So we are we ensure that it does align with the REBA stages. So there are key metrics as to, the identifying, understand in REBA stage 0, for example, and then going on to, for example, co-creating up to stage 2, even up to almost planning. And then that sense of championing, by the time you get to planning, you have a series of people actually championing the design and the outcomes before owning and realizing at the end. So I'm going to talk about a few projects just in practice, how we have embedded working with young people and some of the outcomes, the positives, and from that process. So one of them is in Swaffham. So this is a Norfolk rural town and we were appointed as Urban Symbiotics to lead a team to create a master plan for a high street heritage action zone. The key objectives were to transform, revitalise the space, safeguard and celebrate heritage, and look at future interventions and look at key areas for enhancement. But as you can see, whilst there are beautiful buildings of heritage, the public realm was completely dominated. And actually young people were just actually siphoned and held in this one recreational space that was this, often underused skate park, and there was no real space for young people to even move around or feel a sense of ownership, or even safety within this town. So we looked at the demographics with all our projects. We really trying to ensure who are the demographics, what's the population of young people in the area. And in this sense, whilst young people, actually there was a higher percentage of older people, from all of the engagements that had occurred to date, young people were never heard. They weren't, people didn't necessarily go to them. They weren't attending consultations. You would say that outreach was not sufficient to get to them. So we ensured that we made that our focus. So talking about public realm, we know that girls within spaces are, have different challenges. We went to girl focus groups, we went to girl guides, we went to community youth groups, and we looked at different ways of interacting. So we had this Christmas tree and allowed people, young children, to put their insights on how they use the space, what they would like to see change. And we used that as a basis that was then taken on to wider engagement. So we started with the young voice first. And so we had like over 2,000 insights and just under 600 young people engage. But then they had 70 hours access to professionals too, so that's skill building and aspirations. But actually we had, as a team, we should say we had access to over 500 young people. That is like a gift to us. And it helped us to really look at this vision to set the stage for a 21st century market town. We went to the local schools to ensure we match that demographic. We surveyed the entire school, had over 1,000 insights. We did co-design workshops. We got them to sketch, we got them to draw, we allowed them to imagine how the space could be used in a really engaging way. So we also spoke about selfie spots, and we also spoke about how you could design in and how they could use the areas, knowing that most people didn't actually use it after school or before school because there was nowhere for them to be. As we all know, a lot of young people are seen as people that are, instigators of antisocial behaviour, and so they're actually feared in spaces as opposed to welcomed. But we also looked at the co-design process as not just that which was, drawing and building, but looking at young people that have different strengths and skills. So we had a session of co-design, but we also worked with a poet to help them really think about how does your space, how does it your space feel? How does it smell? How can you look at the emotional, tangible aspects of place? Place isn't just the physicality, I think, as Jo mentioned, it's what are those extras? And the poem that they then created for the future of Swaffham, A Layer of Heritage, was that, I'll just read you a small quote from it, is that they spoke about both the old and new coming together. They said that grandma knows every face, so still surprised when over the horizon another Swaffham arrives, young and energetic, leaping from one fence to the next, and the young and the old of Swaffham sit together on the edge of history, holding their breath. And I think just that quote that was co-designed with the young people really started to look at that intersection between the young and the old, and how we can really work together to create some really interesting and exciting new places for us all to thrive. But we not only left it at those workshops, in the final report and the master plan, we have co-designed spaces. We have an active plaza space that looks at the creation of an outdoor stage, bold car park removal, having places for young people to essentially own and use and play and act, but also with, lighting and security and activity, but also having that activity program that goes along the physical. We also allowed them to help us design a mobile interchange area. They have areas where they're constantly waiting for buses. So how can you turn this into something that is more biodiverse, that is interesting, that has an integrated kiosk and information shelter and a Wi-Fi zone, aspects that young people really craved but were essentially ignored. I'll just quickly go on to Purley regeneration framework. So this is a regeneration framework for Purley, a suburban area in Croydon, and we were appointed by Croydon, the London Borough of Croydon, because there was a lot of development happening with no benefit giving over to the residents themselves. So again, we looked at who are the people of Purley. Over 30% of Purley are under 20. And so we created a panel that had that real community link. It was based on the demographic. We had the youth forum that was part of that, that had a key voice, but a voice that could directly influence the change and shape this regeneration framework. So it is a meeting of, you had Sophie, who's one of the key leaders of the youth project in the area. But then we also went to schools to find out about that insight and to understand what would they like to see in the area. So we looked at both, starting with the Purley panel and also used them for their community to community. So she went out and did her own workshops. We also did schools and pizza nights and co-design sessions with them. But it also directly went onto an insight plan that then developed into a, start of a master plan, but any also focused cultural spaces, which then we went further to deeper understand, what is that interactive engagement? How could we be inclusive? How could we work together to really tease out some of the thoughts and issues that young people had? And, we had underwater sense of, like real inspirational and aspirational ideas, but also litter picking competitions, so it's all, as we said, it's very, pragmatic solutions, aspirational solutions. And one just said, we really want Purley's time to shine. So we've now created this meanwhile public space, having Purley's time to shine as the entrance. This space was dominated by car parking. We use the link, the intergenerational link between the Purley and Bloom and the young people about Bloom where you're planted. We use their text to actually create these spaces of public realm, such as powerful, be wacky, and it's now actively used daily, weekly by the youth zone, but also after school, in a place that they can actually be and own. But from a policy perspective, all of this is still within a document of a regeneration framework that is named in the local plan. And even through political change where SPDs were completely thrown out, this community-led document still remains, showing that sustained legacy of the young people's and community insight that is now carrying through to decades later. And going on to Dagenham Heathway, talk about innovating a high street. Again, we worked with BFirst, the development arm of Barking and Dagenham. And in Barking and Dagenham, we were asked to do this regeneration framework for an area that is changing, but they have one of the highest youth populations in London. So it's so important that we reached out directly to young people to help them shape both the vision and also the resultant outcome and projects of this regeneration framework. So a lot of things that came through were like perception about, youth related. That's how, even if you're not young, communities are like, you need to talk to young people. So we really focused on what do young people want, what do children need. And we also translated into something that was really accessible. This is a young person, but held within a shop. So everything we heard was also really directly translatable about wanting a mini play park or wanting places to sit and relax, wanting places to play. We had a Heathway pop-up shop, so it's almost like an urban room, but very bright, very engaging, and really open to those having after school clubs that you could come in and co-design workshops with us. So we also had duskies, we had barbecues as a suggestion as some of the young people. We went to the Future Youth Zone, who had their own workshops. We worked with, creating all of these different interactive ways of shaping strategies, but projects moving forward, particularly within this area that had a bad perception and needed retail change. And then so we actually asked them, well, what would you like to see? There are vacant shops, and we're now able to start to move this forward. They said they wanted places, for children to play whilst their parents could do something else, places for creative workshops, delightful desserts. And this is now actually happening within this My Heathway shop. So it's not only about listening, but also about doing. And then finally, working with the City of London, who have very small pockets of residents, but tasked us to look at how to look at informing spaces so that the community could feel as if they're a part of them. So we worked with local schools, primary schools, to young carers, to some of the residents in the area, and got them to look at, what are the, cultural things that represent you, or what do you like as a young person that you'd like to see reflected. And then this has directly turned into a beautiful project called Community Threads, where we use all of their patterns, their designs, their reflections, so that they could actually see something that is happening right now. Because we know that a lot of regeneration projects can take years, but sometimes it's nice to offer something back in quite an immediate way. And this was celebrated just over a month ago. And just other work is about, actually having design advocates inbuilt as part of your team. This is one of the projects we did to actually start to shape work in Brixton. So in summary, we really see working with young people, it can be really playful, exploratory. It also forces us to be really curious and open. In the beauty of a conversation and listening, not always asking questions, but really being open to the approach. Seeing ourselves as designer facilitators rather than leaders, and also looking at allowing that immersions and openness, like watching as well as, just constantly asking for information. And then finally, really working with young people, we see that we have great impact, value, but also innovation, not only in the process, but the outcome. We see it's a platform for aspiration, social mobility. It unveils and empowers the experience of young people, understanding how they view space, what they see, but giving them a space to make a change. And also allows us to have tools for innovative design solutions beyond the physical, matching the physical with the digital, and understanding that identity goes so much further than what we may have within our remit. And I'll leave it there, just with that we also see they have great surprise to the design process. So thank you for having me, and I will stop there.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. Another kind of perspective on how you engage with young people.